Hey, happy Thursday, everybody. It's Pastor Ty. I hope you're having a fantastic week wherever you are. And I hope you are looking forward to another great Sunday ahead of us where we'll get to worship Jesus Christ together with our brothers and sisters in Jesus wherever we gather on Sunday mornings. We are going to spend the next several moments here getting ready for service on Sunday at Kindred Church, where we're going to be covering Mark chapter 9, verses 30 through 41. This is an incredible scene coming on the heels of the transfiguration of Jesus and this moment where Jesus heals the boy demoniac where his 9 disciples could not. And so this is Jesus with his disciples immediately following those events. Part of this time is Jesus on the road. Part of this time is after he is off the road. I'm going to read Mark 9, 30 through 41 for us, and then I'm going to give you just some of the sort of the high bar areas that we're going to focus on when it comes time to do this together on Sunday. So here we go. Mark 9, verses 30 through 41. They went on from there and passed through Galilee, and he did not want anyone to know, for he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And when he is killed, after 3 days he will rise." But they did not understand the saying, and were afraid to ask him. And they came to Capernaum. And when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you discussing on the way?" But they kept silent, for on the way they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12, and he said to them, "If anyone would be first, he must be last of all, and servant of all." And he took a child and put him in the midst of them, and taking him in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me." John said to him, "Teacher, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he was not following us." But Jesus said, "Do not stop him, for no one who does a mighty work in my name will be able soon afterward to speak evil of me. For the one who is not against us is for us. For truly I say to you, whoever gives you a cup of water to drink because you belong to Christ will by no means lose his reward." Okay, wow. I feel like every week where we're covering parts of Mark, it just feels so rich and so deep. And this one's no different. Five big things that I want us to look at from this passage. And there will surely be more to cover on Sunday, but these are the 5 things that have most jumped out at me in preparation for Sunday, and I'll take them bit by bit. Number 1, it says in verse 32, "But they did not understand the saying, and were afraid to ask him." They did not understand. This is something that's fascinating to me, and I think on Sunday we're gonna want to walk everybody through living in this tension. Like, what do you mean you don't understand? Like, Jesus is speaking clearly here that he's going to be handed over, that he's going to die at the hands of men, and that he's going to rise again. Okay, and so what we're going to have to do on Sunday is give a careful examination of what the contemporary views in the first century Israel were around the Messiah and around resurrection, and getting a grasp for what it means that the disciples couldn't understand what Jesus was saying, especially when Jesus was speaking so plainly. He wasn't speaking in parable, he was speaking to them plainly. And so how is it when he's speaking so plainly that they can't hear him? So we're going to have to get into the psychology of that, because it can't be that they don't understand the words he's saying, because Jesus isn't speaking parabolically, he's not speaking hyperbolically, he's speaking clearly. And so obviously what's happening here is that they can't mentally get to where Jesus is saying this is all heading. And so we're going to have to get into to what exactly is going on here. I also want us to make note of the fact that Jesus asks them when they're back in the house what they were discussing on the way, and they're afraid to tell him. And the reason they're afraid to tell him is because they were arguing over who is the greatest. And so this will preach itself. This notion of Jesus has just shared with them his destiny to make nothing of himself, to literally sacrifice himself to the extent that he's willing to die And here they are moments afterwards arguing over who amongst them is the greatest. So Jesus is going as low as he can, and the disciples are talking about who can ascend to the highest. They're going in opposite directions. And so we're going to have to get into this really awful tension between Jesus's call for them to go down, 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 serve, 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 versus their proclivity to want to argue to see who's going to be greatest. And so that kind of brings us into number 3, is Jesus firmly showcases this tension and says, you don't understand. If you want to be great, you have to serve. You have to be the servant of servants if you're going to be the greatest. And this proxy of a child, I think, is probably the way to best understand this. This notion that the best way to understand this is to see a child, to see a dependent, to see someone who is simple and young and growing as the way to best understand greatness. And so there's so much we can dig out of that. We're going to have to be careful not to get stuck just on that, because Jesus continues in this passage, and there's more I want us to notice. I want us to see that what is rare in Mark happens this week, in the sense that one of the disciples gets named out. This time, it's the gospel writer John the Apostle, and he asks Jesus, "What's the deal with this guy casting demons out in your name?" Right? He's like, "We tried to stop him. He was casting out demons in your name, but he doesn't follow us." And Jesus rebukes him, and he's like, "No, let him be." Right? And so I want us to notice something going on here, and it's dominant in this passage this week. The disciples are afraid to ask Jesus about what this resurrection thing's all about, what this being handed over to death is all about. And yet they're unafraid to argue over who's greatest, right? And so that's a very odd tension. They don't want to ask a question about how low Jesus is going to go, but they're perfectly willing to argue with each other about who's greatest. And likewise, last week they couldn't exorcise this demon from the boy. They couldn't pull the unclean spirit out of the boy, but they're also in the same episode trying to stop someone else from successfully pulling out a demon. And so it's like, what's going on there, right? I think the gravity around all this, the common bond, the common denominator, is this understanding of what real greatness is. And they're not understanding what real greatness is. And I think we'll probably have to close next week on Sunday with this very sober thought from Jesus, which is, the world really is as simple as this. It really is as binary as you are for Christ or you are against Christ. And Jesus is saying, as we continue down this road, as we continue closer and closer to my passion, as we continue closer and closer to where this is going to supernaturally end, it will become more and more clear to you that you are either for Christ or you are against Christ. And I know people, especially today, in a postmodern world, do not like speaking in binaries like this, but here it is for the reader to hear and to see and to understand and embrace that Jesus is saying that the world is as simple as you are for Christ or you are against Christ. You support Christ and walk with Christ and serve Christ, or you rebel against and fight against and work in antithesis to everything that Jesus is. And that is what makes the world. And so lots that we're going to have to cover on Sunday, but those are the high bars, the milestones that are going to keep us on track. Until then, God bless you, and we'll see you real soon.